before I get to the fuel tank, I just thought I'd show you what I've got going on here. This is the 347. Normally I would build this myself, but at the time I had a job that required me to work a lot of hours, so like I said in my last segment, I entrusted it to a good friend who was a full-time mechanic and a service manager for the Ford store my father used to own. I got the steering column. Actually, I went to the wrecking yard and got it out of a 74 Ford, because this started life as a 352 3-speed. So I've got the column installed, the linkage is all hooked up. This shifter, I love these shifters. That I got about 20 years ago on a trip to California at an antique wrecking yard. I don't care for the chrome ones with the big knob on them, so I've had this around for 20 years. I had it in another truck. When I sold the truck, I liked them so much that I actually kept the shifter. Knowing someday I may need it. That day has arrived. I'm trying to show you a little bit of the truck. It's hard, it's in my garage, it doesn't drive yet, but I just had it painted. I'll link the description if any of you live in Utah. A great guy in Spanish Fork, does really good work, and got me all painted up and ready to roll. Okay, on to the gas tank. I bought it from a place called Tanks Incorporated. They're actually a division of Yogi's Street Rod Parts. And it's set up and comes with all the provisions to run fuel injection. It's got a place here for your sending unit, your fuel pump with a feed and a return line. I'm running a loop system. And then of course the fill neck. So I did this fill neck. I didn't want to go up through the bed because I didn't want to cut a hole and I still want to use it, and I didn't want to have stuff in the bed and not be able to put fuel in it. So what I've done is I took the spout the tank sent me and cut it at a 45-degree angle, and then a good friend of mine, actually he cut it as well, but he welded this up for me, welded this on, and you can see it's on a slight angle pointing that direction there. That's because this isn't in the middle of the tank, and this is going to come out actually through the bumper where the license plate is. I've ordered a 66, 67 Fairlane license plate bracket. So I will get the pump installed and the sending unit, and then I will install it in the truck. What I had to do to get this to come out where this piece to come out where the bumper is I welded some brackets here. These are 1.5 by 2 inch. And that gave me a 2-inch drop. However, I need 3, but I didn't want to go really below the frame. I could have. You can if you want, if you're doing it. But I went this route. And then, let me get underneath here. I drilled holes. One there, one there, one there, and I tapped them. So, I can just mount the tank right up there. There's some lips on the side here. The bolts go through there. And you get another inch. I got these spacers. I got them from Lowe's. They're just 1-inch spacers that I put between the tank and the brackets that I welded in. It gave me the 3-inch drop I needed to run the spout. Now there's a rivet right here. I didn't want to lose this cross member, so I just put this tubing here, and this doesn't go all the way back because the frame goes up. So I went to where it slightly starts to go up. The tank hangs over to about here, but that's fine. It's not a problem. It'll work just great. Okay. Sorry I'm having a hard time breathing. I've got a little bit I have allergies going on, so I apologize for that. But I'll get, like I said, I'll get the sending unit, fuel pump, I'll run the lines, and we'll get back to it. Update coming. Thank you. Unit, what you do is you take these two bolts out. They're Phillips head. They're not screws though, they're bolts. They have nuts on the back. So you pull those out and you measure the depth of the tank. After you measure the depth of the tank, you take half of that and you move this rheostat, which tells you your float level. Incidentally, you can buy these rheostats from tanks in different ohm configurations to work with whichever gauge you have. They have for VDO, classic instruments, factory gauges. I'm running a factory gauge, so my ohms readings are the same as the original Ford factory. So you take these out, you take this off, you're going to discard this plastic, slide it up. Actually, you don't discard the plastic. Slide it up to halfway. You add 1/8 of an inch for the thickness of the gasket right here. So you take half the distance plus 1/8 inch, you put that in the middle. Then you put the float in. You're going to measure to where it's all the way up at 1/8 of an inch from the top of here, again to make room, 1/8 of an inch from the top of the plate, again to make room for the gasket. Full, empty, full, empty. So let me get that done and I'll get back. The tank is 9 inches deep, so I don't know if you can see that, but I've set the float at 4 5/8, 4.5 inches for half the tank, and then 1/8 of an inch for the gasket that sits between that and the tank. So that'll put me right center in the middle of the tank. You can, if you want, trim the bottom of that off, but the tank's deep enough that I'm just not going to worry about it. This was an extension piece for longer tanks. Obviously, if you needed that extension, you would have to cut the bottom of that off. But for what I'm doing, this application will work fine. Now, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put the float in. Here's the float. And you can see it says float side, so you want this ball on this side. I'm going to install that, and I'm going to pivot it up so that it's 1/8 inch from the top of that flange right there to make up again for the gasket. I'll get that installed. I'll cut the excess off. You can see it's fairly long, and we'll be ready to install our sending unit. I'm going to show you how I set the float level. This piece I took off the bottom. I clamped to the housing on the top, the flange on the top. It's nearly 1/8 inch thick. It's a little, just a skosh less than 1/8 inch. So if you can see air, there's air between that float. So what I did is I clamped that to that. I set that so it's just like just less than 1/16 of an inch below that. So that should give me the 1/8 inch I need for my full setting. Then it will pivot, and that would be my empty reading. So that's how I did that. You can do it with tape measures, squares, whatever works best for you. That was just quick and easy for me. I will cut this tail off so that it's just barely out this other side, and I'll install it in the tank. And here we have the finished product. That would obviously be in the empty mode, and then when you put fuel in, the float will go up, and that would register full mode. Okay, now into the tank. Here's the pump ready to be installed. You want 9 inches depth from the bottom of the sock, which is the filter on the bottom of the pump, to the top of the housing, the depth of the tank. That's for the supply line. For the return line, you just need to be close. It's just going to dump excess fuel back in the tank. So it can be there, it could be up a couple of inches, but just somewhere close to the bottom of the tank. Anyway, that's ready to install. Before I install it, I'm going to go to the parts house and get the correct fittings for my fuel lines. The middle one's a vent, and on the top you have a return and a supply line. So I'll go get those fittings, put this in the tank, and move on. Okay, I'm back from the parts store. I picked up fittings right here, fuel line. There's 3/8 fittings, 5/16 thread, 3/8 fittings for the hose I'm running. The reason I'm running 3/8, you can run 5/16, but I've got an Aeromotive fuel filter and some fittings that are for 3/8 line off of my old truck, so I'm just going to use those. I've also got the vent here. The vent is 5/16, and the supply line and the return line are both 3/8. So on the supply line, I just put an S every so often, so I know which one's supply and which one's return. The one that's not marked obviously is return. I've got the sending unit and the fuel pump both grounded. This will go to the frame. This wire is for the fuel pump positive, it's red wire, and this red wire is for the sending unit for the gauge. You can use different colored wires if you'd like. I happen to be colorblind, so I really don't care that much about color. This one, the shorter one, I know is the sending unit, and the one that's rolled up I know is the fuel pump. Also, I picked up this relay that I will be wiring. It's a 4-post relay, and I will be wiring that into the positive circuit of the fuel pump, so that I will have a fuel pump relay. Okay, I'll get this installed and get back. Okay, the tank is up in the truck, and as you can see, this filler sits right here. I guess I gotta get out of the way, I'm a shadow. Filler sits right there. I got it from Tanks, the same people that sent me the tank, and it's just an easy access. You don't need to take the cap off, you just fill it up right there. You're good to go. So you can see my clearances are pretty tight there. And the bumper will cover that. I'll drill a hole in the bumper. And like I said, I got a 65, 66 Fairlane license plate cover, which has a hinge. On those particular cars, the filler was behind the plate, so it'll work out perfect. Also, for anybody that's interested, the bolts that I used to secure the tank, there are 6 of them. There's the 1-inch spacer I spoke about. There's the bolt. They're 5/16 by 18, and I just threaded this metal tube with a tap, so they just screw right in there and hold the tank up nicely. Anyway, thank you for watching. My next video is going to be installing the fuel lines, fuel relay, and the fuel filter. Thank you. The next video that I will be posting will be of me installing the fuel lines, the fuel pump relay, the fuel filter, and the fuel pressure regulator. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.